Hey guys, so I'm here with my brother, and we're going to talk about some stuff that he went through in his life. It started back in, what would you say when you started having stomach problems and whatnot?
Oh, I was 16, 17 years old. I'll just go ahead and start yapping away, huh? All
Well,
right.
pretty much, and I'll ask you questions about it. But so when you were, would you say 17? Around 17?
Yeah, 16, 17, late 16,
What was your
early
symptoms?
17. So I had acne really bad on my face, so I started taking Accutane. And it was about a couple months later. I was working at a care center, helping some residents out, and it felt like I got stabbed in the stomach, and I could barely even walk and stand up. And after a while, I told them I needed to go home. I wasn't feeling good. And next thing I knew, I was going to the bathroom 25 times a day. And I was on the wrestling team in high school, so I'd already dropped weight. And I started losing more weight. And as you can see, I'm a big guy now. But back then, I was wrestling 140. And anyway, I ended up going into the ER, and they done some blood work and some samples and stuff, and referred me to a gastrologist, and they done a colonoscopy and said I had Crohn's disease.
How long after you took, you were taking Accutane, did the symptoms present?
It was just a couple months.
So really
Wasn't very.
quick.
I could get the exact dates. I got paperwork in there, but I ended up eventually getting the medical records and stuff, and there was a lawsuit going on and everything, so we looked into it. And I remember asking my dermatologist, could it be this Accutane medicine I was taking? And oh no, Accutane's a safe medicine, and there wasn't anything on the warning labels back then. This was in the early 90s. And anyway, I ended up taking that Accutane for another 2 years, and it got worse and worse and worse. And
How'd they treat the Crohn's?
they started out with sulfasalazine and folic acid, and it never worked.
Because I can remember you chugging the Mylanta or whatever,
Yeah, I was drinking.
like it was.
Yeah, I was trying that. I was trying whatever would help, and nothing would help. And well, I was kind of a rebel back then.
No.
I don't know if I want to get into that, do we?
Well, does that have to do with
Yes.
everything? All right, let's get into
We'll
it
get
then.
into it. Well, I was kind of a rebel, and I got so sick I was going to the bathroom 25 times a day, and kind of got involved with the bad crowd. And I don't know if I really want to say it was a bad crowd, because I'm still friends with a lot of them to this day, but
People going through their youth gone wild days.
yeah. And I started smoking some grass, and I went into remission. I had no idea at the time that that was what was helping, but researching and everything within the last decade or so, all the news kind of coming out, they found out it's really high anti-inflammatory, and it helps with inflammation. It helps so much that it stops seizures in the brain and everything like that. But
So, what is Crohn's exactly? What and how would
it's an
smoking that
overactive.
help?
This is what I've been told. They still don't know. It's an overactive immune system where anytime you eat food, it thinks it's a virus, and your body starts attacking it. You end up with a lot of inflammation. A lot of people get arthritis, and that's what's happened to me over time. Anyway, I quit doing it when I smoking the wacky tobacco. I quit doing that when I got married and had a kid, and I got into the driving industry, and I quit doing it. And so from, I'd say, the age of 22 to now, I've never touched that stuff. I After I quit doing it and I moved down here and started driving, I started getting sick again, and my wife's like, oh well, maybe it's the food you're eating, and we tried everything. I can't tell you how many different medications. When I was driving, I'm not kidding you, 25, 30 times a day I'd be running with my friends, and I got to pull over and take an off ramp, and every other year I'd have to go in for a colonoscopy because it gives you a real high risk of colon cancer. And medical bills kept stacking up and everything, and I ended up eventually starting my own business after all the years. But that whole time I was sick, and nothing ever helped. And got to the point where I think people around me were just like, oh, he's just being lazy or something, you know. But I wasn't feeling good. You wake up in the morning, you don't feel good at all. I was getting by for a long time, and then when I got my own business and everything, I was doing good, but I was still sick. And
wasn't there another one they thought it too, that it was? Because there's Crohn's and there's another one.
yeah, there's ulcerative colitis and Crohn's.
Colitis and Crohn's.
They called mine at first ulcerative pancolitis, but it tested positive for Crohn's. And it just kind of goes back and forth. You go see one gastroenterologist, and they'd say, oh, you got ulcerative colitis. Another one would say, oh, you got Crohn's. When I'd have the biopsies done, they'd say ulcerative colitis, and then they'd say it looks like Crohn's. So eventually, when the colon was taken out, they determined, yeah, it was Crohn's.
What made you get to that point?
I just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and I'd go in, and they do those colonoscopies to check for colon cancer. And about 6 years ago, I went in, and the tests came back positive with cancerous cells and everything, and that wasn't looking good. And the GI's like, well, maybe you ought to think about having your colon taken out, and I didn't want to do it. And over the years, they'd say, why don't you get your colon taken out, because it was so bad. And I just walking a thin line between life and death with it, because it kills a lot of people eventually. But when it came up positive for cancerous cells, I was like, well, I guess I don't have a choice. I guess I better get it done. So at the time, they'd started me on this new medication, and I took it 23 times. It was called Remicade. It's a form of chemotherapy, and it kills your immune system, because they say that that's what starts it all. Anyway, I started taking the Remicade, and that's when I started getting really bad. It got to where I could hardly walk. I wake up in the morning, I gotta go to work, and I get this inner anger, and try to push myself and drive myself just to go to work. And eventually,
wasn't it supposed to do that?
No,
It was supposed to give you more energy.
it was, well, no, it was supposed to help out with arthritis, and it was supposed to get you into remission and clear everything up, but none of that was working. So I ended up doing 3 doses of that, and it was $20,000 a pop. And it was another $5,000 on top of it.
Which there was no insurance.
Just for steroids, and I had no insurance, so we filed for bankruptcy and got rid of everything and started over. But after 23 doses, I ended up getting financial help through Johnson & Johnson and stuff like that, so that helped out a lot. But it got to where I could barely even function. I was in bad shape. And so after, I think it was 2 or 3 months, they done another colonoscopy, and just hoping that the medicine and stuff was working, and I was hoping it'd be a false positive for the cancer cells and stuff. And so they done another colonoscopy, and I was like, no, you gotta have your colon removed. So
well, they actually told you that wasn't a choice.
Yeah, it was that, or it's gonna kill you. So yeah,
so what were the risks they told you versus the positives? I mean, obviously that it was going to kill you eventually if you didn't do something, but what were the risks of taking your colon out?
Well, you could die in surgery, but I can, you get blockages and stuff like that.
And there's a lot of risk for infection on the stoma. That's what they call it, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of different stuff. I haven't really looked into it, or I just had the surgery and just kind of been dealing with it ever since.
Would you say your quality of life is a lot better now than what it was before?
I I feel better, but I still have inflammation in the joints and pain and stuff like that. But I would say I woke up from that surgery feeling like $1,000,000 from what I felt like before. I was that bad, and I started walking the halls, and everyone's like, "Oh, geez, you need to sit down. You just had surgery." I'm like, "You don't understand. I feel good. I can eat. My stomach, it was constantly churning. It was like having a stomach flu constantly. Your guts and your gas and your juices and everything are just gurgling in your stomach, and you're cramping, and all that was gone when I woke up. But some of it could have been the drugs they were giving me too.
Sounds like that. Remicade?
I woke up and I felt good. Well, the Remicade, I was able to quit taking every medication that I was taking before because it was $25,000 a month.
So you were still taking the Remicade
No.
right up to the surgery?
Up to the surgery, I was taking it, and then
Did they say it helped at all? Because it sounded like it just made everything worse.
no, what helped was in taking my colon out.
Well, yeah, but the Remicade, when you talked about that, it sounded like it just made things worse. It made you tired. It made you sore.
Yeah,
It made you.
yeah,
Do you
it
think
didn't
that
help.
if you stopped taking
It
that,
didn't help. I mean, I done 23 doses, and the first 3 doses are like 2 weeks apart, and then every month after that, you'd go in and you'd have another dose done, and then another dose, and another dose. So I done 23 of them, and so I'd taken the Remicade for a while. I tried it for a long time, and it didn't help. That Remicade, that was a whole nother experience, because you go in there, you're sitting there with people with cancer, and they're getting infusions and getting their chemo and blood transfusions, and so you go in there and you sit there for 3 hours at the infusion clinic, and you sit down with everyone, and nurses come up to you. The first time anyway, it scared the hell out of me, because the nurse is like, "Oh, we're going to give you 1,000 milligrams, and we've never given that much Remicade to anybody. I need to call your doctor because this can stop your heart. It's really dangerous stuff." And I was like, "Oh,
let's do that.
Great. Well, yeah. So, what am I doing here?"
Yeah.
So anyway, it takes 3 hours, and they pump it into you with the drip, and then after 3 hours, then they unplug you, and they sit around. You wait for another half hour or hour. I think it was a half hour, 5-6 years ago. So they wait for your heart to stop in case you might die from a bad reaction. They dope you up on Benadryl and stuff like that for allergic reactions every time, but every time I went in, I didn't know if I was going to come out of the hospital. So
How long did they keep you in there?
just
Each
3.5 hours. 3.5. It was 3.5, 4 hours. Sometimes I'd be in there for 5 hours just because they set the drip real slow. But
Do you feel any different right away, or you don't tell until later?
I would say after the first time later that night, I felt like something just dropped on me. Like I couldn't walk. It's hard to move my joints and stuff like that. I used to, before I started taking it, I'd go in there to like Denny's and sit down and have a meal and stuff, and I was always hitting the same Denny's because I was on the same run, and the waitress was in there near me, and I went in there one time, and I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. I could barely walk. It wasn't just around the house. Everywhere I was going, I was having struggles walking around and moving, and they say it's supposed to help with arthritis, but it was
Making
completely
everything worse.
opposite for me. But it just didn't work out for me. I tried it, but that's just one of probably, that's it. Yeah, I kept recording, I think.
Yeah, it is.
So, anyway, I'm like, "Hey, you guys, you got the munchies?" And they kind of laughed, and we're in bumper to bumper traffic, and we end up getting onto the 210 freeway, and I pull up next to them again. They're like, "Hey, roll your window down." And I look out, I'm like, "What?" And I roll the window down, and they throw this little purple bottle through my window.
Oh.
I was like, they did not just throw that crap in my truck, did they?
That was like weed or something?
Yeah. So I'm like, God, I cannot have that in my truck. What am I going to do? And anyway, I called my wife, and I'm like, "Hey, you can have this crap, but
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'm a driver." Anyway, it rolled around on the floor. I ended up driving home, and Gave it to my wife, joking around with her. Here, you can have this. And all it was just a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece of grass. Well, it sat underneath our bed for probably 2 or 3 years. And at the time, I was looking through all my medical records, investigating this Accutane lawsuit. And Facebook had started up, and I got on there and started looking into different Crohn's disease and colitis groups, and everyone's like, hey, I smoke marijuana and it helps. And I'm like, well, I wonder if it helps, and I can't do it, But anyway, when I got to my worst, this was just before the surgery, I asked my wife, I says, hey, do you still got that stuff that those guys threw in my window that one time? She says, I think it's under the bed or something like that. So anyway, she was gone. This was in a phone conversation, and I tear the room apart, and I found it. So I'm like, well, I ain't gonna do it here. There was a jazz game on and everything. I didn't do it around my kids, and so I jumped on my four-wheeler, and at the time I shut the business down. I wasn't driving, so I'm like, I'm just gonna try it to see if it helps. Drove up to Newcastle Reservoir up on the mountain and puffed it. It was only a couple little hits. Come back home. I'm sitting there watching the jazz game, looking at my kids, wondering, God, man, I feel like an idiot. I can't believe I just did this. Anyway, the churning and stuff in my stomach had slowly started calming down. I'm like, well, maybe I just feel better. Maybe it's making me feel better. And okay, anyway, I didn't want to talk to my kids because I didn't want them thinking something goofy was going on with me. So anyway, the next day I wake up and I felt okay. And went in and went to the bathroom, and it was the first time in probably, I'd say at the time, maybe 20 years, it was probably about 17 years at the time, that I'd actually had somewhat of a firm bowel movement, and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, well, maybe this anti-inflammatory really has something to do with it, so I looked into it, and I was contemplating, maybe I could juice it, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that, but it's not an option for my industry, so I can't do it. I broke down in tears, called my wife, and talked to her about it. So I told her, I says, I'd like to do it, but, I'd have to change my work, and it's like, well, we got bills to pay, we can't do this, and at the time, I'd sold the truck and everything, and I was out of work for about 3 months, and we got ready for the surgery and that, and went in and had the surgery. But to this day, it's still not an option for what I do. I like doing what I'm doing. Makes me a decent living, so I can't do it, and I can't do it because of my kids. But
and even if it was legalized and prescribed, you couldn't do it.
Well, it's legalized. I could go do it, but I can't
even
have
in
my
Utah?
job. Yeah, it's legal in Utah now. I talked to a lot of people in Utah about that, trying to get it legalized in Utah, but I could do it in Utah, but
just not with your profession.
Yeah. I mean, they say that there's, plants and stuff out there, and I know that there are that have no THC in it, and it's just an anti-inflammatory stuff that I could do, but I don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
It ain't worth it to me. After I had the surgery, the churning and stuff, that stopped. So now it depends on what I eat. If I eat carbs, it firms up. If I'm not eating carbs, it's straight liquid. But I drain the bag now, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a day, depending on how much I eat or how much I drink. If I drink a lot of liquid, it's a lot higher output, but it has a lot to do with that. But
so is it still doing damage?
oh
Yeah.
yeah. I have a lot of inflammation, arthritis. I'm starting to get bones coming up out of my knees and stuff like that. Me and my wife have been talking about it, but it's a sign of arthritis. And working on cars and stuff like that, my hands start cramping up. I go out. That's another thing. I get dehydrated really, really easy. Your colon absorbs water.
Yeah.
And so when you drink water, your colon, it absorbs that. Well, I don't have that option, so I got to keep drinking liquids. But I'll go out hunting and stuff like that, and I've been and I'll start, gutting the animal or quartering it out, and my arms literally just cramp up like this.
And there's nothing
just
you can take
muscle
for that?
cramps and stuff, and I gotta just relax and everything, and try to drink liquids and hydrate and stuff like that. But working on cars and stuff, my hands, it hurts. Right now, I've been having issues sleeping at night. Um, my shoulders, both shoulders, just hurt and ache. It wakes me up in the middle of the night, and it's kind of a good thing it does that, because I have to go drain my bag in the middle of the night, and if I don't, then I'll have a blowout in the bed, and Ingrid don't like that.
Can't imagine. So
yeah.
what's left in there? Your colon's like however long. Did they take the whole entire
The whole
thing
colon's
out?
gone. All I've got is my small intestine that comes out of my stomach. That's it right there. Pokes out about that far, and they fold it like a sock and start eating the skin up. So, yeah. But yeah, around my stoma, the skin's all eaten off. I don't have any skin around it. I put foot powder on there and stuff like that to try to help it, but I don't know, if I changed it every 2-3 days, I probably wouldn't have that problem. But they're very expensive, so I try to make it last. So it's one more cost in life.
Right. Well, hopefully we can progress as a nation and maybe have some more helpful stuff out there to help people in your situation and other situations that are struggling with things that it would help,
Yeah. It's kind of, a lot of people don't talk about it. A lot of people joke around about it, and before I even had the surgery, there were people, that I worked with, and they would laugh, and I had a kid's mom that had a bag, and it's like, we don't got it by choice,
No. And I don't mean about the bag, I mean about using marijuana to help people to cure their sicknesses, even if they have a different job profession. I mean, it's completely understandable not to do it on the job, but, on your off time.
Well, I still wouldn't do it, because that stuff stays in your bloodstream for a very long time, and it's not an option for me. At one point in time, I thought, well, I could juice it, because I researched that. A lot of people juice it, and it actually gives you more endocannabinoids and stuff like that if you actually juice it. And you don't get the high from it. You get the high from heating it up, and that kicks in that THC, and that's when you get the psychoactive effects. But I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. So it is what it is, and I just kind of struggle with it every day with my aches and stuff like that. The good news is I'm not cramping up. I'm not sick. I can pretty much eat whatever I want as long as I chew it well.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, then I get a blockage, and that hurts like hell.
Yeah. So it has helped your life expectancy for sure, because you
I would have been dead by now.
But is it still an issue to where, it would be shorter than normal if you didn't have that? Or do you think that it's just, you'll live a normal life expectancy, or do you think it'll still affect you?
To be honest with you, I don't think that's what's going to kill me.
No?
No. Truck driving's going to kill me.
Yeah, that is
Sitting
hard
on my
person.
tuchus for 70 hours a week, and then climbing in the sleeper and going to sleep, that's what's going to kill me. Truck drivers don't live a very long life, so I don't think I will live a very long life.
Well, you got your dad out there.
But you never know.
He's in his 70s.
Yeah, but I've been driving truck almost as long as he has.
Yeah, that's true.
And he had a pretty active life before he had that, and he's already had a quadruple bypass surgery. He's a pretty tough cookie, but I need to get in and have my ticker checked out and stuff like that, and get a stress test done. But
yeah, it's quite common in the family.
Yeah.
It's about time.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think that's what's going to kill me.
Well, hopefully.
Because now, I mean, the only risk is if it attacks my stomach or my esophagus or my small intestines, and so far I haven't had that issue. Luckily, it's just been in my colon and rectum, but that and the inflammation and the joints and stuff like that, the arthritis that comes along with it, I got that, but
yeah,
that ain't gonna kill me. My ticker's gonna kill me.
Or maybe you're going to be around until you're 102.
God, we could only hope, huh?
Well, thank you for talking to us today.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully this can help somebody out there that's dealing with the same situation make, an informed decision about what their next steps could be.
Yeah. If anybody out there struggling or wondering, this is the main reason I kind of want to do this, is don't be afraid to have the surgery done. Don't be afraid to get a bag. You're going to feel better when you wake up. Yes, it's a different lifestyle. There's a different, you got to go to the bathroom differently, but if you don't, and the doctor's telling you that, hey, it's going to kill you, don't be afraid to do it, There's people out there that can help you changing the bag, showing you what to do. It's still a struggle. I cry sometimes, It's like, God, I don't want to change my bag. I don't want to deal with it today, and it's just a different lifestyle, Don't die. Don't let it kill you.
Honestly,
You
I
gotta
forget
fight.
you have it until you joke about it, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's more in the people's mind who have had the surgery, like, oh, I'm different, or oh, I've got this, but, you make a joke of it, you make light of it because you think, oh, I'd rather me do it than somebody else. But honestly, I forget about it until you joke about it.
I just tell people I got a suicide vest on. No, I got a concealed carry,
Yeah.
But, no, it's embarrassing. It can be, but I just joke around about it and try to be positive about it. But I'm alive and I'm here. That's what counts.
That's exactly what counts.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, brother. Love you.
Ken, love you, sis.
All right. Like and subscribe, and thanks for being here, guys.
Day you hate yourself in anxiety, depressed and messed to death, you'd open up and welcome wide with a smile. They told you it's clinical, but I seem so critical. I wish I could convince the thoughts that you keep on believing were a lie. There you go. So broken and alone, you walk with your head held so low, and you wanna give in most of the days, and that's okay. But I hope you see someday that you are beautiful anyway. When you look in the mirror, please try to see it clearer, how crazy and amazing you are, and then let it aside. It can be scientific, well, trust me, no, I get it, but I won't agree when you tell me you don't deserve a life. There you go. Someday that you are beautiful anyway. Raise your hands, take a second and breathe in, singing ah. here for a reason. Raise your hands, take a second and breathe in, singing hallelujah, I'm known and loved. Raise your hands, take a second and breathe in, singing I'm here for a reason. Raise your hands, take a second and breathe in, singing hallelujah, I'm known and loved. Raise your hands, take a second and breathe in, singing I'm here for a reason. Raise your hands, take a second and breathe in, singing hallelujah, I'm known and loved. Raise your hands, take a second and breathe in, singing I'm here for a reason. In a way you fly, free with your head held so high, 'cause you never let up the fight, and you never gave in on those days in the pain. That's what makes this life so wonderfully awesome and horribly awful, yet somehow it's beautiful anyway.